Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co host, Trey Holiday. And you guys know we're doing a digital vibe for y'all. I'm going to be throwing it digitally over to my guy, Big O. Back on my original side today. Yesterday, I was with Base. I was a little thrown off.
There you
There we
go.
go. Hey,
Good
what up?
morning. Good morning, Trey Holiday. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, brother?
Fantastic. Big day today. We've got this gun violence roundtable at 6 o'clock right here, wherever you're watching this show. A lot of stuff going on today. We're going to jump into it. We got two live guests today. We've got Payday, one of the community activists, protesters, Payday, bringing some insight as to what's going on out there in the streets. And we also got Sean Goode from Choose 180. He'll be on at the bottom of the hour. We're talking more about the roundtable tonight. Want to jump into a few things that are coming in fast moving. Don't have a lot of details. We definitely got these headlines up here. First is, let's see. Man, I've been watching this right here live on the news. Feds say they thwarted militia plot to kidnap Whitmer. That's the governor of Michigan. And basically, there's a white militia group there that planned to kidnap her and several other law enforcement agents there in Michigan, and people are like just basically mad. The big reason people are mad was about the closures around COVID. I guess one of the people, the FBI, federal agents infiltrated the group. And one of the things they're mad about is the governor closed gyms over there. And you remember Michigan was one of those states where we played a clip months ago where, people stormed the Capitol, actual rotunda, had the firearms in the rotunda, and some of the lawmakers there had their private security because of everything else. So, that's a developing story. There's still the press conference on that actually just ended out there in Michigan. And, Director Ray said that these militia groups are one of the biggest threats to America right now. People talk about the protests, but there's a lot of stuff going on with these militias.
Man, there's always so much more to uncover as we've seen. Oh, and, so many of us are really being educated right now because we don't understand a lot that's going on unless we're really in the middle of it. So once again, and kind of another look, for the American people to really see.
All right. So we got another one right here kind of coming in. This was last night or yesterday. This was announced there in Minneapolis. Protesters take to the street following release on bond of former officer charged in George Floyd's killing. And I believe that the governor there dispatched 100 National Guards, men and women, to the scene.
Yeah, what a big story. Again, we know that this is going to continue. I mean, folks are going to storm the streets. We see this now as a outcry from community as they respond to all of this violence. Once again, another something for us to follow.
Was it that people there wanted the officer remanded with no bail? Because, the judge set a bail and the officer met the bail requirements.
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that, folks want a greater form of justice. They're not happy that this officer that's responsible for such a heinous crime is now able to be at home with his family.
All right. So moving on, another big story today is President Trump said earlier on Fox News that, you know what, he's not trying to do a virtual debate. He was like, man, if it's debate's not going to be in person, the president said that he's not going to debate. He's just going to go and do a rally. Biden has now come back since then and said, well, you know what, man, I don't want to debate either. Here's a clip that we have this morning from MSNBC.
Good, really good. I think perfect, and we're ready to go. I'm ready to go, except the quarantine situation that you have for a little while after you get tested or whatever the procedure is. But I'm ready to do. I'm looking forward to doing the rallies. I heard that the commission a little while ago changed the debate style, and that's not acceptable to us. I beat him easily in the first debate, according to the polls that I've seen, but I beat him easily. I felt I beat him easily. I think he felt it too. He wouldn't answer any questions, and he had the protection of Chris Wallace all night long. It was I thought Chris Wallace was a disaster. But I beat him in the first debate. At the second debate, we have a never Trumper as a host, but that's okay because I beat him in the second debate also. And but I'm not going to do a virtual debate.
That's President Trump just a few moments ago on Fox Business Network calling in. There have been some twists in this story since we left you. We told you in our last hour that the Commission on Presidential Debates announced that next Thursday's debate, the second presidential debate, the one in Miami, would be virtual, that the candidates would be in separate locations but still in a town hall format. Well, since then, as you just heard from President Trump, the Trump campaign has come out and said the following: the safety of all involved can be easily achieved without canceling a chance for voters to see both candidates go head to head. We will pass on this sad excuse to bail out Joe Biden and do a rally instead.
Yeah, so he's passing on the sad excuse to bail out Joe Biden. He's going to do a rally. And Biden, I don't think there's going to be any more debates. I think the president now is saying that he's willing to do another debate closer, like 3 days before the election or something else. I don't really see it moving forward.
Well, you know what is really unfortunate for the American people? We talked about, the first debate being already a debacle of what it's supposed to be. And it's unfortunate because who is left to actually bear the brunt end of this? It's the voters. It's us, because we don't get to actually hear from any one of them. We don't get to understand their platform, how they're going to approach the next 4 years. We're not hearing that. And that's really what these debates are about. Again, they made it all about attacking one another. So the fact that now neither one of them want to contest to saying, yes, we need to do another debate. We need to try to make sure that we unveil our approach to the American public so they can vote accordingly. I think both of them are really thinking, hey, I kind of got this in the bag. And that's really the sad part here, Oh.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of stuff from analysis from the debate last night. Caught up with Mike Davis of the South Seattle Emerald and Julia Jesse, who are both very opinionated. And so we talked to them last night after the debate, and we'll be playing some of that here later on in the show. Bringing it back here to Seattle. Yesterday, Seattle Police Chief Adrian Diaz outlined this community response group at a short press conference yesterday. We have some video of that. We'll play that here, and then we'll follow it up.
Today marks 1 week since the launch of our new community response group. We want to provide you more information about the community response group and what they're doing. This team of officers are part of my commitment to focusing on our core mission of responding to community calls for help and working with community to address problems to prevent crime. Their work will be driven by community needs and will be done with the community. I asked these officers to volunteer for this work because we need a team that can address the needs that weren't tied to the artificial boundaries of a precinct. These officers are available to handle 911 calls citywide, with their commanders seeking direct input from the precinct commanders and community stakeholders to identify emerging and persistent issues that the community response group can address to reduce problematic behaviors. Last week at the start of the CRG shift, the team of officers held their roll call at Hing Hay Park in the middle of Chinatown's International District. As they went to work, they spent their first part of their shift speaking with business owners and checking on locations and just talking with people who live and work in the community. In the first week, the community response group was critical in handling an unusually busy Friday night. We had multiple shootings, we had a homicide, we had several critical traffic accidents, and we also had protests.
So Chief Diaz, interim Chief Diaz outlines community response group. Like you said, it's a group of 100 officers and some commanders who are basically like a rapid response around community type issues that require the police. Carolyn Bick wrote an article about this in the South Seattle Emerald, and her pushback on it was that this group doesn't communicate directly with community. So basically, community talks to like precinct commanders, and then precinct commanders relay concerns to this group. But they're active. They're out there.
I think that, this is one step, right, that we've seen in terms of the Seattle police really listening a little bit to community and kind of trying to come up with their own approach. I think to the point of what Carolyn's saying in her article, I understand that, because I think community is saying, wait a minute, that's not the same approach we want to take. We want to be at the table. We want to be in connection with this and really leading this effort and allowing the police to take a step back and really take the leadership of community. So there's a growing voice here on both sides to this.
So I got a question for you then. If the SPD was like, oh, okay, well, this group, this command group, or of course there's 100 of them, but top leaders from this command group are willing to meet directly with community and kind of take the middleman part out of it. Do you think that there's community that's willing to meet with the police, I don't know, once a week, twice a week, whatever these concerns are, to talk directly to this command group? Will you get people to sign up for that? Is what I'm saying.
Well, no, what I'm saying here is that there's a community approach already happening, right? There's a peace and safety initiative that's been in the works. They've been meeting for months already on end, finding a different approach that really comes from community. And when I say that, I mean, it doesn't actually connect to the police department in that regard, that there is a full-on community response team. There's a community response line that's available 24/7 for the community to be a part of that. And that's what I'm talking about here. Oh, that when I say that for, hey, these guys to take, community leadership, is to see how that group really forms and then figure out, okay, how can we maybe from the outside in do exactly what they're doing on our part. I think that, again, I'll give it to them and say, this is at least a step in the right direction to say, look, we understand we need to take a different approach here and that we don't need to come with such brute force. I do hope that's a part of their approach. But I think, again, not having community at the table to really guide that and to say, look, let us show you how we've come up with this process. That's really where the community voice stands, is that we really want to create something that's led by and informed by full-on community members that are saying, we take these matters into our hands. We are creating community response teams that really understand a cultural approach to all of these issues, that then maybe we can take that off of the police force. That's really been the voice of community. And that's what I have really heard out there in community. And what I know to be working on the ground is a really strong community peace and safety initiative that's saying, look, we can actually do this differently. And if you allow us to build that, we could show you how to do that and not take, your leadership to say, well, you've done this community response team. Now let us glean from you. But actually, hey, we have a process and you can glean from us in terms of how we do that. But know that we also have a real robust, resilient program that we're doing within community that's led by community.
Right. Well, a few things here. I mean, with this program they've rolled out is citywide. So it covers, 88 square miles of Seattle and 700,000 residents. And also, I mean, we hear in the response there, responding to homicides and, hit and runs where somebody got killed. And, there's definitely an expertise where police have than over any community. But I think that the task force here, this community response group, at least as I'm understanding, as they've rolled it out, isn't to exclude community. It's that there is a protocol as to how community communicates with this particular group that's been rolled out. And that communication goes from concerned community into precinct commanders and then onwards to this group, as opposed to community groups directly to this group. And so the precincts actually filter information and they're involved in the process. Either way, let's see what happens. He's rolled it out. This is a new program here for the SPD. And like I said, it's citywide. So they're responding all over the city. Next up here is Mayor Durkin. Mayor Durkin. She's somebody else that are calling for her to resign. And I mean, these are some heavy hitters right here too, because this is Seattle Human Rights Commission. And they're saying that they want the mayor to resign over violations of constitutional and human rights, over economic property and prosperity and protection, over governance, city governance. I mean, they've put out a lot of grievances here over homelessness, quite a few things that they're wanting Mayor Durkin to resign. They're not even talking about recall anything. They're just saying that the mayor needs to to sit basically resign. And it's a letter that they sent to the mayor and to the city council. And why this is a big deal is that this is part of the city, the Seattle Human Rights Commission, who's actually written this letter here, requesting that Mayor Durkin resign.
Once again, a growing voice here. Oh, and to be honest, they have what you just laid out as such a comprehensive plan as to why they need her to resign, why they're asking and demanding and putting this out there for her to resign. It's clear there's been, I feel like, a growing concern of failures on a lot of different fronts when it comes to how she's responded, how her office has responded to so much of this growing concern within the city. I think, again, a lot of what they're saying, a lot of what their claims are really resonant throughout community as well, if I'm being honest, because folks have been talking about her response to certain things. I think we even talked about it. We talk about it all the time on this show. And there's been, there was a great response with COVID. And now there's this very troublesome response when it comes to the social justice issues. I think her putting it out there that she wants to do, $1 billion investment into the Black community, then later saying BIPOC community, wanting to do a task force over wanting to do, this kind of community approach, just not really saying, look, I succumb to what's going on here. Let me really listen to my constituents and figure out how to work with them in a way that really allows them to lead this, because I actually am here for them. I think that what they are laying out is a lot of the stuff that community members have been talking about.
Yeah, well, nobody likes politicians in any city. So, it's just, it kind of goes with the job. There's we'll see again how this one plays out, but there's also the Supreme Court ruling that'll be out in a few weeks to see if the recall can actually go forward. And speaking of recalls, on the side note here, Councilmember Sawant has appealed, I believe, to the Supreme Court for them to rule on whether her recall can go forward. Caught a little bit of the debate last night. Governor Jay Inslee and Lauren Culp. Yeah, man, it's just two different worlds. You know what I'm saying? I mean, where Inslee is about, government kind of working directly for people and this and that. And Culp is like, man, government's not here to lead people's lives or tell them how to live and everything else. It's just two different ideologies. But Culp said something very interesting that I thought that I would play right here, and people can kind of get an understanding when we talk about discretion, because he's the chief of police in his city. It's two officers there. He's the chief. But he talks about how police officers have discretion. And I thought this was a real interesting soundbite, and I'll follow it right up here real quick.
Police officers have discretion to enforce or not enforce. You ever get pulled over and not get a ticket? Police officers have discretion. Chiefs of police and sheriffs have discretion on what their departments are going to enforce, what they're going to focus on, whether it's drug crime, sex trafficking, or speeding. That's up to the discretion of the chief law enforcement in that agency.
Yeah, and this is true. And I think a lot of times what we say in our community is there's an absence of discretion.
Yeah, seriously. Oh, definitely. Such a major absence of it. I mean, we've been doing such great coverage here. And to be honest, without Converge's coverage, I wouldn't know who Dolan was. I wouldn't know what role SPOG has in all of this, or how the chief's role is, restricted in certain regards. I wouldn't understand how all of these factions kind of work together. But you're right. I mean, going straight to OPA and asking them, hey, do you even have credibility here? I mean, do you even have a sense of authority here? Are people even listening to you? Or are you listening? Right? There's such a great story that we've been uncovering with regard to police discretion in particular, that it's funny to hear his perspective on this one.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, we all know that discretion is there. We know that a lot of times, officers have the ability to be like, you know what, it's all good, or you know what, I'm gonna take you to jail. And it's just interesting to see how much of that discretion might actually be used in our community. Moving on here, Bartell Drugs. Bartell Drug was founded in the Central District in 1890 Bartell, man, they're giving up the ghost. They're selling to Rite Aid for $95 million. Basically, they'll keep the Bartell name because it's a good name. And they'll move on like that. People are saying 95 million is on the low side, it's considering Bartell and their brand and everything else. And the best thing about Bartell is Bartell, a local company, man, you felt the local love there, local, a lot of local brands. And one thing Naomi Ishizaka said was that a Bartell's in the South End was as well stocked as a Bartell's you would find in an affluent neighborhood. And that's not the case with Rite Aid and a lot of these other stores. You go to the South End, man, it's bare bones a lot of times. You go to the North End and it's super plush. So, hoping that in the selling of Bartell's to Rite Aid, that they'll keep that those values in the store, and we'll continue to find equity across the Bartell chain.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. One thing I have to say is this. As a young woman growing up in Seattle, when I started working, you know what I mean? Safeway was one of my first jobs. Bartell's was definitely going to be my pharmacy. It was going to be where I went to get specific items. And I chose Bartell's over anywhere else, literally, because I knew it was a local brand. So when I saw this story, it was really shocking to me. And I do agree that it's on the low end. I think their brand is way beyond, 95 million when you think about market value. And I also think that they do have such a community-centric approach. You can't really buy that. So again, I'm agreement with you, bro. I'm hoping that they keep that culture and keep that character alive, because that's why the community loves Bartell.
You're right. And Bartell's is selling because of the thing they're saying is a strain on COVID. Hey, we've got Payday. Do we got Payday? Can you bring Payday in? Oh yeah. So Payday is here. And I'm going to do a quick introduction for Payday real quick. And we're going to play a short clip. Payday is, I guess we'd say, community activist, protester, this, that, but somebody who's been out there. We first bumped into Payday way back at the Western Barricade the first week of June. And he's still out there in the streets and still out there protesting. I saw a very interesting live that Payday did the other day on his IG and kind of reached out to him because I want to discuss with him more about what's occurring with the protest on Capitol Hill. If you could play this clip for us, Oya.
When we're complaining about our faces being on streams, my life is on stream every single day. When I step outside of my door, my blackness is on stream. Me being black is a live stream. So for someone to get upset about their face, for a small portion of time being shown on a live stream, and then proceeding to argue about that particular situation, it baffles me. We are not here to baby and cater to you when you're out marching in the streets for Black lives. We're not here to be sympathetic for you and how you feel about, we're not here to baby white people through this marching process. You come to march for Black lives. White people, you have to check your privilege, because sometimes I don't even think you guys understand what you're doing.
All right, Payday. So, man, what we're hearing, what we've kind of seen ourselves, but what we're hearing is that, like, a lot of Black protesters like yourself are pushing up against this wall of people who are basically using their privilege to say that even you shouldn't be out there protesting Black lives the way that you want to.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate because what I have noticed about these marches is that and just from that quote in particular, it was one person at this particular march that I was at. And so when I was there, I had already not felt safe. I had made a message prior to the march that we were doing because the leadership was all white. There was not one Black person there to lead this march or go about the activism for the particular reason why we're there. We were there for Jonathan Price, and we were there to show solidarity from the city of Seattle, which is exactly why I felt like I needed to be there, so that these white people can really understand what you're marching for. And I asked the question, I was like, hey, do you guys know why you're here tonight? And half of them didn't even know what was going on. And then the ones that did, we're here for Jonathan Price. I'm like, okay, how did Jonathan Price die? Do you know? And so I'm providing all this information to people who want to go out there and fight for Black lives. But you got to remember why you're doing it. You got to remember why you're out there, and you have to know the significance of it. And so when I'm marching, and I'm, like I said, I'm walking 20 blocks screaming at the top of my lungs with no megaphone, and I'm already kind of skeptical looking over my shoulder, but they're telling me to my face that they got me, and I believe 90% of them. But when I'm chanting and I turn around and my camera catches a glimpse of someone who is fully blacked out, and we like to call it block on the streets, fully blacked out, and their first response is to push my hand away and then tell me about the camera being on them for 2 seconds. And it just, I was so embarrassed because everybody else was paying attention to that too as well. But the funny thing is some of these people who are of different descent of BIPOC, they will get on your head and they will tell you, hey, you need to know your place, you need to check your privilege. And it's hard being the only Black person out there to have to kind of lead the march, but then also try to mediate somebody and try to calm it down and tone it down as to why, and wonder as to why you would rather try to check me, and you're here for Black lives. It baffles me.
I got a quick question for you. We're up against the clock here. Are you finding that more and more people that are out there protesting are out there for the cause that you're trying to amplify, the value of Black lives? Or are you feeling that more and more people are coming out there and have a different agenda, but are out there who are, because people are organizing around the value of Black lives, they're now joining in, but their agenda might not necessarily be yours?
I think they have a sense of entitlement. I think because with our organizations at the bottom, at the grassroots, these are marches that are coming up the day of. So we'll put up so it's Seattle Morning March. They'll put up their flyer the day before. You got to show up, you be there, and then we're going from there. Evening March, we'll let it be known probably about noon time. But it's these nights where we can't really make it. And so I think they feel so empowered because they're out there for Black lives. They're getting flashbanged, they're getting pepper sprayed, and they feel entitled to that. So they're going through all those trials and tribulations, and they're like, yeah, we're here for Black lives, but they're not coming with the facts. They're not knowing exactly why they're there. They just feel so entitled because they've been through it with us, and they feel like that's enough. And man, let me tell you, when I made that comment, I said, like, I'm on live every single day. Anytime I step and put my feet on these streets, I'm on live every single day. And I'm also 6'3", walking with people who are, every single person in the crowd is white. I think the message I could give out is just check it. Just check the privilege, check how entitled you feel when you're marching for the lives that we're losing. We are the ones that are losing.
We have to leave it there. One thing that resonated with me though is because I used to be out there streaming, and you're like, man, this blackness you can't take off. So other people can put on black block, but this blackness can't take off. Payday, man, thanks for checking in with us. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna keep an eye on this situation. We'll talk to you soon. We're gonna take a quick break right now. When we come back, we have Sean Goode from Choose 180.
My parents coming over here as refugees meant that they didn't really have anything when they came to America. Having reliable healthcare and having a reliable doctor was really important. Cộng đồng của tôi, trạm y tế của tôi.
我的社区，我的诊所。Mi comunidad, mi clínica.
بلشدة هي بقارها.
My community, my clinic.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury, and I'm joined by
the Trey Holiday. Hi, y'all.
Trey Holiday. Hey, you bring Sean Goode in. I hear he's in the waiting room. There he is. What's up, Sean?
Peace. Happy to be here with y'all.
Hi, Sean.
Hey, Trey.
Thanks for taking a few minutes with us. We've kind of got a short segment today, but I wanted to give you a short time here up front. There's always new viewers coming in to explain just a little bit about what Choose 180 does.
Yeah, succinctly, we are a nonprofit organization that supports young people at critical moments of their lives. And instead of having them pivot into the criminal legal system, they pivot into community, receive grace instead of guilt. And a large portion, in fact, 90% of our participants that would otherwise get charged for crimes that receive this grace don't return to the criminal legal system within 12 months of participating in our programming.
All right. So, Sean, we've got this roundtable tonight,
Yeah.
and this has been an ongoing issue. It's almost a generational issue. I talk about when I was at Garfield High School, when we talked about people getting murdered then and everything else. If you can speak quickly about what is the current state of the streets right now? Why are these conversations imperative to have right now?
Well, I mean, when we talked about this in the past, when you grew up in Seattle and I grew up in South King County, really similar situations happening then that seem way too familiar as we find themselves manifesting themselves today. And in large part, some of the differences is what used to be considered gang violence is not really as much gang violence as it is group violence. And many of these groups are being led by young people who are living their trauma out loud in community, and their behaviors manifesting in a way that's causing harm to others. And we're at a really critical moment where we can begin to embrace this in a different lens and a different paradigm, and begin to look at it through the lens of a public health issue and really address the things that are creating the trauma that then lead to young people firing off 70 shots and attacking folks that look just like themselves, instead of getting the treatment and support they need to be healthy and whole and thrive in community, instead of looking through the lens of dying by gun violence.
Right. And now a lot of people are going to be tuning in tonight for takeaways,
Yeah.
And actually the first hour we're talking to victims and victims' families, because a lot of times they're not ever humanized. It's
Right.
just a number of fatality. The second hour is kind of like the state of what's going on, the state of the streets. And the third hour is takeaways and solutions and next steps. Maybe you can share with us quickly, like what are some of the solutions that Choose 180 is offering, and what are some of the wider, broader things that you'd like to see occur to help tackle this issue here in our community?
Yeah, well, shortly, when I served in doing gang and group violence intervention work several years ago, and when I was doing that work, I was also serving as a minister in the community. And so there would be moments where we'd support young people on the block one weekend, and then on subsequent weekends, I would be supporting their family, getting prepared to eulogize their children's service. And what I realized at that moment, and why Choose 180 resonates so true and so timely for me, is that we need to be able to engage young people at pivotal moments all throughout the continuum of their development. And our organization is strategically positioned to engage them before they begin to demonstrate some of the symptoms that could ultimately lead to them being a victim of or accused of engaging in gun violence. And we feel incredibly fortunate to serve in this way in partnership with so many other organizations in this community that are supporting young people at different intersecting moments, with the vision being that collectively, if we are able to stand together with great synergy, that there's no young person that should fall through the safety net of community support.
All right. Sean Goode, we'll be seeing you tonight. You're in the 7 and the 8 o'clock hours. The show starts at 6 p.m. anywhere someone's watching Converge right now. And we've actually got some video content from Choose 180, and people will be able to hear Sean. And, Chief Diaz will be there as well. So, representing from the city, the police side, we want to get as many heads together from all kinds of different places, man. Let's find some solutions. Want to definitely salute you on the good work that you're doing, Sean.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. I appreciate you both. Thanks for creating the platform for work like this to be amplified. You both are a gift to our community.
Oh, thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we have coverage. We're going to talk about the VP debate. We got some clips from there, a few other things. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury.
I'm Trey Holiday.
All right, so Trey, the vice presidential debate was last night, and man, I'm already debated out, to be honest with you. But we've got a clip right here. We got 3 clips all together, but the first clip is actually from the debate, and this is when Vice President Pence, when the topic of Breonna Taylor and had justice been served in that case. And this is Vice President Pence's answer.
In the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think, look, and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. And justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed. I mean, it really is astonishing. Flora Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon. Was burned to the ground by rioters and looters. And Flora is still trying to put her life back together. And I must tell you, this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that America is systemically racist. And that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities, is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day that President Trump and I stand with you.
All right. So, just a few takeaways from that is that it's unfortunate that the vice president took a discussion about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and then took it to the streets and riots and everything else. I think he probably had a great opportunity, to leave that kind of where it was and address those points. But the other thing is, they kind of got me on this. And, I'm a real chill kind of person. But the thing is that we've heard from the last 3 years that we shouldn't trust law enforcement. Is that you fired the FBI, the FBI said the deep state, law enforcement's all bad and everything else. And then it's like, hey, they support law. So it's 2 different messages kind of that come out of the White House there at times. But the last thing is that what we're coming to find out is that the grand jury was never presented a murder case against Breonna Taylor. And so when it's like, the system working and everything working properly, it's a lot coming out about that case, and that, murder was never presented there.
Yeah, I think that, his answer is really troubling when I hear it. Because once again, taking and doing a pivot, a huge pivot like that, and a shift on something that is such a hot button issue across the country right now, it's unfortunate. I mean, again, it's sad because I, as just a person, a citizen of this country, when we get these debates and we have these opportunities to hear from someone like Vice President of this country, who doesn't really get all this kind of exposure. A lot of the time, he's been in Trump's shadow this entire presidency. So for him to have this platform to be able to speak, and really showcase something, and that's what he does. It's unfortunate, but I think you're also right, that we've heard double talk from this presidency before, and this was another example of that.
All right. So after the debate, caught up with Julia Jesse and Mike Davis of the South Seattle Emerald, and talked a little bit more about Kamala Harris. Actually, big part of her is that, she's there. Yeah, she's Black, but there's quite a few people in the Black community that, like, you know, they have an issue with her record and some of the other things about her past. And this was a discussion here with Julia and Mike about Kamala Harris's record there in California. But he went after her record as a prosecutor there in San Francisco. And that's kind of been, you know, a soft spot for her, not only on the Republican side, but also in the Black community.
Absolutely. I mean, she's going to have to answer to that. And I think a lot of, look, the culture is going to come for you, especially when it comes down to law and order. I'm not a huge fan of prosecuting attorneys, not unless they are fair. And, you know, the facts of the matter is that, you know, Senator Harris, she has people still locked up in jail and, you know, without repercussions. And so we need to figure out, we do need to fact check. We do need to check her record. But when it comes down to this big vote and we only have Joe Biden as the nominee and the ticket, we really don't have much of a choice, right? But I think beforehand, I mean, you know, Kamala Harris was not my choice for president because of her record.
Right. Mike, your thoughts?
I agree. I'm not the biggest fan of Senator Harris, to be honest. And it's a very conflicting thing. I mean, on one hand, like I said, you know, my daughter sees her up there, and that's great. Like, I want my daughter to be able to have role models like that. But when you really parse through her record in law enforcement, there's so many things that jump out. The truancy things where the elementary school kids were truant. She made the punishments more hard on parents, and she literally sent poor people to jail on those issues. There are innocent people in jail. George Gage, you can Google that. He's in jail right now, and she had so many different opportunities to dismiss his case, and she chose to press forward. It's just really, really disturbing. And I don't have all those details in front of me, but like I said, you can Google that. It's there. But on the other hand, she was a pioneer with the body cams and making sure that law enforcement actually had to wear those body cams. She did introduce those implicit bias trainings, and we can debate the effectiveness of those trainings as much as we want. But the fact is, no one before her did that. She was the first to do so.
All right. You know, I mean, this is what we were saying a long time ago, is that, you know, there's a big part of the community nationally that has their reservations about Kamala Harris.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been hearing this growing discourse across the nation, especially once it came out. Okay, she's definitely going to be, you know, now the candidate for vice president. We've heard that grow. And you know what? I think that she has another opportunity right now to really address a lot of that, to really speak to the American people's concern about how she's going to, you know, kind of shift a little bit of what we saw in her history and rhetoric that seemed present in a lot of her judgments of the past. It's something for her to answer for the American people right now.
All right. And one other clip here. We talked about the big three. I'm going to talk about the big three here, man. Income gap, home ownership, and the education gap. And to me, it doesn't really seem to be that people are talking to these specific things. These are big problems, but they're very specific problems that can be identified. And is this going to be another election where basically things don't change for Black people? So another one of these elections, like, man, well, we need to hurry up and vote so this person doesn't get in office. But at the end of the day, are things actually going to change for Black people? We'll play this clip. What are your thoughts, Mike, as far as like just addressing these basic things? These are the things any community in America wants: higher paying jobs. They want home ownership, which leads to generational wealth, and they want better schools.
I would say, I think you hit the nail on the head. The big three was not addressed in this. Nothing that was really specific to the Black community was addressed. And I know for me personally, for a long time, that's what turned me off of politics as a whole. I always felt like it was really just a bunch of white people debating with other white people about issues that will help the lives of white people, and that Black people really just took a back burner. The Democrats want the Black vote, but they never take a hard stance on Black issues. And going back to Senator Harris, she's against reparations. Like she said, reparations specifically for the Black community is something that she is against. So how can you expect to have the Black vote when you're against reparations? Hopping off an airplane in a pair of Timbs is not what's going to get you the Black vote. A bunch of politicians throwing up a fist and taking a knee with kente cloths on, that's not how you get the vote. If you really want to get our vote and you really want to get our support, how about bringing up some of the issues that actually pertain to us in our communities and actually listening to our voices? Because that's what the job of the politician is. You're supposed to represent the communities. And right now, I don't feel like we have politicians on a national level that's doing that.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the debate last night, Trina?
Well, the thing is that, I only got to see some highlights, but once again, it felt like, are we really getting answers? Are we really getting what we need? Are we really getting at the meat and bones of what is really needed for us to make a sound decision here? And I think that there's still some things to be left up to chance. One thing I will say is this, Mike is right there when he's talking about, the choices that we're up against. We do have tough choices right now. And I think that there's this generalistic concern that, hey, Trump is just so bad that we must have Biden and Kamala. They must come through and we got to see what they will do. And I think that that's what I'm hearing the most resonate out there is that folks are saying, I understand that there are these underlying issues, that there are these nuances that we must address. But I think that too, there's such a larger voice of folks who are saying, I don't know what we will do and become as a nation if we have 4 more years of Trump in the White House. And so, there's both kind of discourses happening in terms of the things that I'm experiencing. And it's interesting to see how all of this plays out. But I think that the people really have a choice here to say, look, what do I choose? And it sucks that almost every time it feels like it's a lesser of two evils.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that I think for poor Black people and even most marginalized Americans, regardless of what color you are, and poor white people, man, especially like poor Black people, nothing really ever changes. And regardless of party slogan, I think that it really comes down to the motivation for voting is around specific, issues that are impact our community, and also on the federal level. Of course, people are motivated to vote right now, especially this issue around the Supreme Court. We'll see how that plays out and everything else. But it would be interesting to see somebody come with a plan that's actually going to, change the lives. Joe Biden came with his Lift Every Voice. But we'll see if people can talk to that. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we've got a kind of a sobering Throwback Thursday. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
Funny, some of these political comments that are coming in. For sure, we can talk about 20 things on here, but we talk about and people will be quiet in the comments, but we talk about politics and they start coming in. Today's Thursday, and we got Throwback Thursday, and it's crazy because it was back in May. It was May 12th, after the murder of Connor Dasa Holland out there near Rainier Beach. And I called Willard Jimerson. And I'd called Willard a few times. There was the 13-year-old boy that just randomly shot a person and killed them there in Burien. And he said he just felt like doing it. I mean, we kept seeing these spikes in violence. And it was kind of like, man, pray for the family. My prayers are with them. But when Connor Dawson Holland got murdered, my son Omari was good friends with Connor. Connor went to O'Day for a year before he went to Rainier Beach. And I remember calling Willard onto the Morning Update show at the time and telling Willard that, man, I was really ashamed that this is what it took for me to shake out of that, oh, well, prayers for these people, and I hope they'll be okay. There's a clip from May of this year. I want to welcome my brother, Willard Jemison.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you for allowing me to be on this wonderful platform.
So, man, I'll be honest with you, Willard. When we talk about this conversation around youth violence, in particular, the murder on Sunday, I got to thinking that, like, man, I'm real ashamed of a few things. I'm ashamed of the fact that people have been dying and I've kind of somewhat been indifferent. Like, man, that's too bad. Prayers to the family. We got to do better as a community. But I'm ashamed of this murder because my son, Omari, was good friends with Connor. So now it's impacting me. But in impacting me, I thought about, what about all these other young people who have died, who I was like, man, hope they be all right. Hope the family's good. You know what I'm saying? I kind of feel ashamed of that. Yeah. And, out of that episode right there of the Morning Update show, that's when me and Willard Jemison teamed up to start Good Game Alert, which is the show that we put out that's really targeting marginalized youth and really kind of stepping up everything that we're trying to do around this issue. Because, as me and you both know, this is something that just impacts us directly and dearly. Yeah, it definitely does. And to hear you talk about it like that, oh, you're right. There's such a part of us that it's been evident. If anybody, for all of those out there who've been watching our show from day one, you've seen even emotional moments, because sometimes it's not easy to just turn that off and not have the tears when they swell up, because we realize and understand how much it's hitting us personally. So when we talk about this violence, it can't be abstract in that regard. Oh, and I'm glad that, at least we went through that experience. You were able to go through that early on, because look at what we've experienced since then. Look at the deaths that we've experienced in our community since then. I'm having a hard time not being emotional now, because I'm looking back at May and I'm thinking, man, look at where we are now. It's October and we've lost so many more. There's been so many more that have had to get rushed to the hospital trying to save their lives. So many more families that have been affected, man. It's been a tough summer, a tough season for our community. We've been feeling this pain, bro. And honestly, looking back at that, I just think how we've driven and moving thus far, we definitely have to come together, man, to really resolve this. So I'm so thankful that you guys are doing this gun violence roundtable tonight, because it is hitting our community so hard, bro. It is. And, and you're right. When we've experienced a lot. And, for me, on the front end, on the 6 o'clock hour, we have Alicia Dasa, Connor Dasa Holland's mom. We have Donita Sinclair Morton, it's Lorenzo Anderson's mom. And that whole thing right there, and that murder occurred during the time of CHOP, and knowing that family, but we've got Davida Briscoe, who's also going to be on there, and then we have Youssef Siefu, who's going to be speaking from community justice, and so that's in the 6 o'clock hour, and I think that's really going to be a real powerful hour, and we wanted to be able to humanize these victims of gun violence in our community. You can put that graphic up, Oya, please. And so what we have 6 o'clock, and actually Enrique Serna is joining us now as well. Starting at 6 o'clock, anywhere that you're watching this show right now, you'll be able to watch our gun violence roundtable. You can bring it back. So we're getting ready to get out of it. I mean, it's an emotional topic. I think that even when we were broadcasting back on Capitol Hill, just right after CHOP and everything else, and I remember that day that we went on air, like 5 minutes before we went on air, you had found out that one of your relatives was murdered there in the Central District. And as I think for us, a lot of people are able to report on the community and then they go home, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But reporting on the community, being in the community, and then knowing the people who were murdered or their family, I mean, man, it's tough over here for us sometimes.
It really is. And to be honest, I have, my brother, his father was murdered by police. And, and I think all the way back to that. And it just takes me to a place where, Michael Ealy, you can look up his case. Another, and this is back in a time where, I think about the work of his mother, all she's done to uplift his name. And I think about how you have folks, I think about Tyrone Love, just so many names that have unspoken justice has not happened for those families. They've not gotten that call to say, we found this person, we've got them locked up, we kept pressing on this case. And so I'm just happy that you're doing this, because gun violence has been wrecking our community for so long. I've lost friends, family members. My brothers have lost a countless amount of friends. And to be honest, it isn't easy. It isn't easy for us to always report on it so objectively when it hits us so hard and so close to home.
This is true. 6 o'clock tonight. Make sure you guys tune in, tell a friend, tag, share, everything else. Trey Holiday, I'm already standing over here.
I am, man. I'm standing.
All right. Well, man, I'll see you again tonight at 6 p.m. And of course, we're back tomorrow at 11 a.m. for the morning update show. Until then, peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rise.